Okay, so picture this. It's April 1970. Humanity has already landed on the moon. Twice. Apollo 13 was supposed to be the third trip, kind of a been there, done that sort of mission. But oh man, this flight would not be remembered for its moonwalks. Nope. Instead, it became one of the most incredible survival stories ever told.
You know how after something amazing happens a few times, it starts to feel a little normal? Well, that's what was happening with moon landings. Public interest was kind of fading. In fact, things were so calm back in Mission Control that one of the communicators actually joked that they were bored to tears. They had absolutely no idea that things were about to get very, very interesting.
For 2 full days, Apollo 13 just cruised flawlessly through space. Everything was going perfectly. The crew even did a TV broadcast that, honestly, not many people on Earth bothered to watch. But then, 56 hours in, a single moment changed absolutely everything. The mission and their lives were about to be turned completely upside down.
All right, so let's get into it. This was supposed to be the easy part. The launch was almost perfect. The journey was smooth sailing. Everything was going exactly to plan. The crew, Commander Jim Lovell, Fred Haise, and Jack Swigert, were over 200,000 miles from home, just getting ready for their big moment on the moon.
Commander Lovell was moving between the 2 modules of the spacecraft, and that's when it happened. A sudden, violent bang shook the entire ship. All at once, warning lights started flashing everywhere. The routine mission was over. The calm was shattered.
Right after the explosion, there was just confusion. The crew up in space, the engineers back in Mission Control, everyone was scrambling to figure out what that bang really meant. They would soon find out it was a full-blown catastrophe that had just crippled their ship.
And when I say things went wrong fast, I mean fast. The explosion happens, and just 8 seconds later, not even enough time to process what happened, an entire oxygen tank reads 0. It's just gone. Only minutes after that, the crew is on the radio trying to explain the disaster that's unfolding around them.
This has got to be one of the greatest understatements in all of human history. When Jim Lovell calmly said, "Houston, we've had a problem," he wasn't talking about a small glitch. He was reporting that their spacecraft, their only ride home, was dying.
So what actually happened? An oxygen tank didn't just leak, it exploded. Violently. It blew a huge hole in the side of the spacecraft and, in the process, damaged the second oxygen tank. Now you have to understand, that oxygen wasn't just for breathing. It was their lifeblood. It was used in fuel cells to create electricity and water. So as their oxygen was literally bleeding out into the vacuum of space, they were losing everything: power, water, and air. Their main ship, the Odyssey, was dying fast.
With the main ship crippled, the mission goals changed in an instant. Landing on the moon, forget it. That was out the window. The only thing that mattered now was getting these 3 astronauts home alive. And their only hope was a wild, audacious plan that had never, ever been attempted before.
They had to switch into what became known as lifeboat mode. The plan was to shut down the dying command module completely to save its very last bit of battery power for re-entry. Then they had to move into the lunar module, Aquarius. Here's the huge problem, though. Aquarius was a tiny lander designed to keep 2 people alive for about 2 days. It now had to support 3 people for 4 days. The math was not looking good. So just as they're settling into their tiny lifeboat, a new, silent killer starts to creep in. With 3 men crammed into a space built for 2, the carbon dioxide from their own breathing was quickly building up to deadly levels. They were literally poisoning their own air.
Now this is my favorite part of the story because it's the ultimate DIY hack. The problem was simple. The command module had plenty of filters to scrub CO2 from the air, but they were square. The lunar module system needed round ones. So what did the engineers back in Houston do? They dumped a pile of everything the astronauts had on board: cardboard from flight manuals, plastic bags, and a whole lot of duct tape onto a table, and invented a solution on the spot. They literally figured out how to fit a square peg in a round hole and then radioed the instructions up to the crew, saving them from suffocating. Absolutely incredible.
Okay, so the air was breathable again, but now the crew had to survive the brutal journey home. They were trapped in a powerless, freezing cold tin can, basically using the moon's gravity to slingshot them back towards Earth.
To save every last watt of power, pretty much everything was turned off. That caused the temperature inside the ship to drop to just 3 degrees Celsius. That's about 38 Fahrenheit. It got so cold that the walls were literally dripping with condensation. The crew was freezing, they were exhausted, and they were severely dehydrated, rationing their water to just a few sips a day.
And here's a crazy piece of cosmic irony for you. As they were fighting for their lives, their emergency path around the moon actually swung them farther away from Earth than any humans have ever been, before or since. So right in the middle of this desperate struggle for survival, they were accidentally setting a new distance record. But even with everything going so terribly wrong, their spirits never completely broke. At one point, Mission Control told them that a discarded part of their rocket had successfully hit the moon for a science experiment just as planned. And without missing a beat, pilot Jack Swigert just dryly joked, "Well, at least something worked on this flight." That kind of resilience was absolutely key to their survival.
So, the mission was, by every technical measure, a failure. They never landed on the moon. But the incredible story of how everyone on the ground and in the sky worked together to get them home transformed this disaster into one of NASA's greatest triumphs. And this right here really shows the heart of the story. The original goal was ambitious and exciting: land on the moon. The reality became something much more fundamental: survive. This stark contrast is exactly why Apollo 13 is known as the ultimate successful failure.
Of course, NASA learned some massive lessons from this. Future spacecraft were upgraded with an extra oxygen tank and a backup battery, just in case. And in a strange twist of fate, an earlier tragedy, the Apollo 1 fire, may have helped save them. Because of that fire, the wiring on the spacecraft had been better insulated. This likely prevented all that freezing condensation inside Apollo 13 from causing a catastrophic short circuit when they had to power the ship back up.
After 4 long, cold, terrifying days, the crew jettisoned their lifeboat, Aquarius, and powered up the command module for a fiery re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. The entire world held its breath, until, finally, those 3 beautiful parachutes opened up against the blue sky. Apollo 13 splashed down safely in the Pacific. They were home.
The story of Apollo 13 is so much more than just a space mission. It's this powerful lesson in ingenuity, teamwork, and staying calm under the most extreme pressure imaginable. It shows how a potential disaster can be turned into an incredible triumph. And it makes you wonder, right? What's the impossible problem in your life that could be solved with a little bit of duct tape and a whole lot of determination?